Hey, everybody, it's your friend James Shaw. Thanks so much for joining us here in Pivot Shift Ahead. I'm glad that you're with us. You know, we talk real estate in here most of the time, right? It's a real estate community. So we're always interviewing real estate agents and others about how to succeed. And yet sometimes we got to bring people on that don't sell real estate for a living. They do other stuff for a living because they did it at an elite level and they can offer us perspective that we can bring into our world. And that's what we're going to do. We're actually excited because we're having Alexi back. Alexi, you were with us a while back, like a year ago, and you're coming back to us, so I'm excited. But some people may not know who you are. Would you just take a quick second, introduce yourself to everybody, tell them who you are and a little bit about you?
Yeah, I'm so happy to be back. I am Alexi Pappas. I'm a long distance runner. I ran in the 2016 Olympics in the 10,000 meters, and I have since continued to run in different ways. I made a movie at the Winter Olympics. I've been guiding for blind athletes who are training for the Paralympics. I just ran 100 miles 2 days ago. And I am an author and an artist, and certainly can relate to being in a world where there are things we can control and things we can't control, and just really having kind of like a long game approach to like success and challenges. So I'm really happy to be here together.
We're glad you're here and glad to have you back. I've followed you for a long time. I'm a runner, not elite, but I did run cross country in high school and I've run 6 marathons, but definitely not elite. And yet I love following you. I follow all the elite runners, and you're one of my favorites. You're ridiculously creative, and what you do for the Paralympics is amazing. And your book is great too. So we had you on to talk about Bravey a year ago, but then in August, you had the young adult version come out. This is really cool. I have an 11-year-old daughter who this is her copy. So she let me bring it in today for the interview. But tell us a little bit about the book and why you wrote it and why it might be something that even real estate agents would want to read.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that there is a certain um type of like energy and that goes into like kind of pursuing things we can't fully control, but that we do have some control over. And, growing up, I wanted to be like I kind of wanted to be like happy, successful, and normal in some ways, but grew up without some of the like really handheld tools that I thought I might have needed. I'm being very vague. I grew up, with just my dad and my single brother, and I think all I wanted sometimes was like a companion to me to tell me like what to do, and oftentimes I had to figure that out on my own, whether it was regards to like how do I chase these big dreams? How do I deal with mental health? How do I deal with when the world sees me differently than I see myself, which is like the most confusing thing, right? When you just don't feel the way people see you, or when you have to put on kind of a face and lead during a time when you don't feel so great. And so I wrote this book. I wrote the adult version after the Olympics, and this younger version is less memoir and more instructional for kids, because I think when I was that age, I would have just wanted I just wanted to be told certain things. And I think it's a lot of side doorways into situations, specifically vocabulary shifts and seeing something that feels objective and trying to find a subjective way in to stay on our own team. So Maya Hawke wrote the foreword. She's from Stranger Things and has a really interesting perspective on growing up. And I'm hoping this book can be really helpful to that kind of 9 to 14-year-old range, and just be a little companion to them, and accessible, certainly.
Well, I'll give you the review of my 11-year-old when she's done with it. I promise you that. And yet there's so many lessons we can learn from it. So I'm going to walk through some of them. Let's start with the thing that probably most people, may associate with you, which is running in Rio. And you
Yeah.
ran the 10K in Rio. And I know we're skipping a lot of stuff, but I want to go to that because you touched on this before, that when you ran there, that was an amazing race for you. And yet one that came with some challenges and adversity along the way. Can you talk about just even your Olympic experience and what that was like, and yet kind of staying focused on the things you could control? Because right now in real estate, there's some stuff we can control and a lot of stuff we can't. So walk us through that.
Yeah. So I think, like, look, every race that you run is going to be painful and difficult in ways you can't predict, right? And it's almost like a given that there are unpredictables in sports, and in any peak in our life, right? But what I tried to do for that race was give myself the best chance to, one, toe the line like as prepared as I could be, and two, to try to embrace some of the unknowns and some of the unexpected things, whether it's the chaos of the Olympics. Like, the Olympics is truly an unpredictable event. You don't know if things are going to work. You don't know where you're going to, if you're going to find coffee in the dining hall, or if you're going to have to go to the bank on campus to find it. You know, there's all these unpredictable things, but to see that as a reason why things will go well and not why things will go poorly is a mindset shift. So some athletes go to the Olympics and they hope that it'll be a sterile experience, just like all their other race experiences. And they're going to be disappointed, right? Because it's not like any other race, it is the Olympics. And so I think just approaching it as like, that's a good thing, was helpful for me, and it made me have more fun. And then I I guess, I had a race plan going in knowing that the world record might be broken, and it was. I knew that I was gonna get lapped, and I think that that's something that some of my peers were not prepared for. So when they got lapped, I ran a national record, 80% of the race did, but we still got lapped by a girl running the world record, and when that moment came, I remember expecting it and, like, embracing it, and other people crumbling and just, like, going out the back, falling off, or trying to go with her in not a wise pace. Um, so, like, all of this is to say that, like, this is not like any other race, and that's what makes it great. We could talk about the moment after the race, we could talk about all that, but I think your question was more about the race itself, right?
Yeah, well, we can talk about whatever you think is right, but I want to jump in on one thing because you said that going into the Olympics, you have to have the mindset that this isn't like any other race. And this is, I mean, you've run 10Ks your entire life, basically. So you go in to do the 10,000 meters, the longest track event in the Olympics. It's the Olympics. You know who you're up against. You know what the pace may be, and you embrace that as opposed to, I don't know, let fear get in the way. You said
Yeah.
it's a mindset approach. What stuck out to me is a real estate agent can go in this market knowing there are going to be fewer homes sold because interest rates are double what they were 2 years ago. And yet you can embrace that instead of being fearful about it. How does one embrace the moment instead of being fearful about the moment?
Well, that's a great question, and, something maybe what's similar is that there's also probably, like, there is this maybe a misunderstanding that, like, an Olympic race is me versus all these other girls in the race, or perhaps in the real estate world, there are other agents, there are other houses. I don't know how that competition can feel, but my big shift was to not see it as me versus these other girls in the race, but really as, like, all of us having integrity and trying our best together, and that, like, the tide raises all ships kind of mentality, so that it wasn't as much. I feel like I went in without, I wasn't being driven by fear. I was trying to be driven by the possibility that it might go well, and that we were all kind of in it together. And so I wonder if that kind of abundant mentality could apply to your community's world as well, of just trying to see it as like, look, the goal is to go in and try my best, not be the best. And maybe that mentality, that helped me a lot, because I was just like, look, it's just me trying my best out there. There are other bodies out there. We're meant to kind of lift each other up. But me doing well doesn't mean somebody else doesn't do well. We can actually all do well. And if I struggle, I'm not the only one struggling. So, I remember this one race that I ran where I was running against an Olympian. I wasn't an Olympian yet, and she seemed to be breathing, like, really easily, and it was a 10-mile race, and it was, like, 5 miles in, and I was feeling very tired, and I was at the front, and I remember being like, "What am I doing up here?" Because she's not even breathing hard, and I feel so tired. And then about 2 minutes later, she was out the back, she was out. And I realized that we can't assume that anybody else is doing any better than we are and isn't struggling. And it's just not that useful to assume we know about our competitors or about the people around us because we really don't. We really can only manage ourselves and assume that this is challenging for everyone and that we belong just like everybody else.
Has it always been like that for you? I mean, you're a competitive runner. Has it always been so easy for you to say, "I'm gonna focus on me and not worry about the person next to me"?
No, it's not. I no, I definitely would get psyched out, like, when I was younger like, in high school in particular, I remember feeling like it must hurt me more than everybody else, and that I used to always wish that, like, an alien would come and land on the track and the race would get canceled because it would, like, hurt so badly, and, I think the shift was to try to see challenge and pain, as long as we're not, like, injured or having, like, a serious mental health struggle, to try to see it as a sensation rather than a threat. So, like, a sensation is like a smell is a sensation, touch is sensation, and so pain or challenge, like, it is a sensation and it is not forever, and I think the way that I've shifted is to make sure that I balance out the, like I think what it is we need to know our why, right? Like, we need to know why are we putting ourselves through this challenging time, and is there a check-in point? So, actually, this might be a good conversation for us to have because like with the housing market and with kind of these seasons that I run or these races, I think what makes pain or challenge or uncertainty tolerable is when we give ourselves a period of time to be in the incubator doing the work, not questioning the status of the world or whether we can hang in there or not for a period of time. And I wonder, maybe we've talked about this, but I wonder if it's a common thing to have like check-ins quarterly or whatever it is to be like, where are we at? Check in and then go back into the incubator and do the work of being, whatever it is that we are, whether we're a real estate agent or an Olympic runner or whatever. And is that something that you do or how does it usually work?
Yeah, I think that you're exactly right that the agents that are succeeding are ones that measure first they know what the goal is. And when I say goal, I think some people misinterpret that. They look at a goal as, "Hey, I want to sell X number of homes this year." But that's way too far out. That's just for me that's too far out. So I want to know, how am I winning in the moment? I don't think it's any different than I think you're running the New York Marathon in November, is that right?
I think
Yeah.
I might be guiding.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So you're going to guide someone in New York, and that person's going to have some goal that they want to
Yeah,
achieve, whether it's a finish time or something like that. And yet you're going to be measuring it along the way, right? You do a 5K, a 10K, different check-ins. You're watching paces. You'll have a run plan laid out that, hey, we want to do, these miles at this speed and so on and so forth. You have different check-ins that you want so that you can measure your success along the way. I think what successful real estate agents do is that you measure your success not by the result of whatever you got, because that might be out of your control,
right,
but by the action that you took on the journey. And
right,
and did you ever, if your goal is every day, hey, I want to talk to 10 people about real estate, you have complete control over whether or not you talk to 10 people about real estate today. Where you
right.
don't have control over, did I sell 52 houses this year? And I'm thinking, I mean, the same's true for running, right? If you go to the 10K, you ran a national record. I don't know. Was that was that a PR for you? Was that your fastest
Mhm.
10K? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's your fastest race you've ever done. Is that a result of your preparation? Is it a result of your environment that you were in? Is it a result of both? What is the result? Because you don't actually have control over how the 10K finishes,
Mhm.
but you have control over the process you take to get there. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, and I was prepared. Like, I will say, you know, um, like, with fitness, I think the nicest metaphor to think about or the most accurate one is a pencil, where, like, most of the time when you're writing with, like, a pencil, which maybe none of us use anymore, but the most, like, reliable pencil to write with is one that's, like, not super sharp. It's, like, the dull, strong tip that's like how you want your body to be most of the year, because if you were to sharpen it too much, it breaks. Like, you know how a really sharp pencil, it doesn't really stay that way. But when you're really, really peaking, like at the Olympics, you do want to be sharp, sharp, sharp. You just can't be that way the whole year. And so I wonder, I mean, first of all, my coach peaked me. He had me ready. We sharpened the pencil. We were ready to go at that race in Rio. And I felt that I could push my body to do anything my mind asked me to do. And it was such a euphoric feeling. But that is not how I felt every single race. And I try to talk to people, I live in LA now and I run with more runners who are not professional. And it feels like they expect that they're peaking every single race. And I'm like, no, I would go to some races just to practice my warm up routine. I would go to other races just to practice the middle 5K or whatever of the race. And I wonder, like, if we're asking too much of ourselves by asking ourselves to be top, top, top form, week after week after week. And is that sustainable? And I don't know how it applies to your craft, but I can't imagine that it would be easy to be Olympic peak sharp for 52 house sales a year, right? That sounds wild to me as an athlete. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I agree with you. I think that there are going to be good days and bad days, but if we can win more days than we lose in whatever way that we think is winning, we've got to make a decision about what does it mean to win that day. And if we can win
Right.
more of those days than we lose, then we're in good shape. So if you use your example, you go out and run a race, but really the only thing you're super focused on is your warm up. And if
Right.
that goes well for you, who cares about the race? You've won the day. The day wasn't about the race. The day was about your warm up routine.
And
And
maybe it's cumulative too. Like if you really can hone in on like one element of your craft, like let's say like the warm up of the real estate agent. I don't know
yep,
what that is.
yeah,
If that's something that someone struggles with, to like dedicate time to like that. Once you nail it, it will probably be within your muscle memory, right? So maybe breaking down the craft into these elements. I'm sure people do,
yep,
I'm sure there's like stages to how people approach it and everything, but
yes.
I wonder if they could be an athlete about it. If they were to be an athlete about it, they would certainly be breaking it up, and instead of taking it on as like an entire failure or an entire success, they would look at those pieces because that's really more manageable anyway,
Yeah,
right?
I agree. I agree. You're really famous for the third, and third, where a third of your runs are going to be amazing, a third are going to be just okay, and a third are going to suck. And it's just having the attitude that our whole world's going to be there. We're going to have days that we nail it. Every appointment we go on is great. Everything we say should be Academy Award winning as it comes out of our mouth. There are going to be days you get by, and there are going to be days that stink. And having the perspective about that is really, really important. I have one more question for you before we kick it. And thank you for spending time with us. But
Mhm.
you talked about environment and coaching,
Yeah.
and you had a coach that prepared you correctly. That you had the right mindset about the environment, and you used that to push you. How important is mentorship, accountability, and environment when it comes to success in a really challenging time?
Look, I think we're very lucky if we can have access to people who will directly help us, right? Whether it's like a mentor or a coach. And if we have that, it's a beautiful resource to like lean into. It's very, very important. If we don't have that in the way you think about it, because I think sometimes we think about, mentorship as this passive thing that you just receive and you're lucky to receive it. I think we can still seek it out, and maybe you and I did talk about this, but in the form of like podcasts or books and pretending like they're speaking uniquely to us. So I think mentorship is something that like we're responsible to seek out and we should seek out, and it's a resource that like is the reason why we're all on this planet together, is to kind of support each other and to at least use our imagination to pretend that we have that support even if it's not direct, right? um and it's important because we might it might just be like an intangible confidence that we feel by hearing someone understand where we're at, but it also might be like an actual tangible vocabulary shift or tool or uh like a practice that we can adopt immediately and shift. And I think our evolution is not a passive one. Like, we need to choose to become the next thing. And one of the chapters that I wrote in the new book is about butterflies and the fact that when caterpillars go into their chrysalis, they become this liquid glop and then they sprout wings. They don't just become butterflies. And what that speaks to me is the fact that change and evolution can be messy and painful. So, like, we can have that liquid glop state, but also the difference between humans and caterpillars are that caterpillars don't have a choice to not become butterflies, but humans do. Humans can stay caterpillars forever. And so I think we really are like in the driver's seat of our own evolution, and we have to choose to be butterflies, unlike caterpillars who don't have a choice. And I think the last thing, I had something that I thought of, and now I can't remember what I was. Oh, I remember. So about like the climate of the industry right now and like what to do. I saw this interview with Seth Rogen, and he was just simply saying that the difference between the people he's seen that have quote unquote made it and not are the ones who simply hung in there. And I was like, wow, that is like so simple and beautiful. And like he comes from such an experienced place of seeing people like, progress through these challenging careers. The arts are very challenging as well and unpredictable. And he was just like, the ones who just stayed with it are the ones who made it. And so I find like great hope in that myself. Because, even in my writing career, Hollywood is in a strike right now, and there's so much that's uncertain. And I think that I trust that hanging in there means a lot more than we think.
Yeah, that's so good. Alexi, you're one of my favorites. All right. I love learning from you, and I'm thankful you'd come back, and you're going to meet with our Inspire members and go a little bit more on that soon. So I thank you so much. Congratulations on the young adult version of Bravey. I'd recommend everybody go get the original book and then buy this one for your kiddo or somebody you care about, and let them learn from you. We could go so much longer and go so much deeper than what we did. You've got an amazing story that's quite inspirational. So thank you so much. Where can people connect with you on the socials and the such?
Just my name, Alexi Pappas, which is potatoes in Spanish with an extra P.
You're so fun. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Alexi, and
Thank you.
enjoy New York. That'll be great in November. Thanks for spending time with us today.
Okay, talk soon. Thank you so much.
You got it. Bye-bye.